Welcome to another episode of Coffee Time. I'm your host and coffee drinking companion, Natalie of Natalie Christina Coaching. Coffee Time is a space where I invite you into the everyday, real talk conversations I'm having with the magical humans in my life. My sole aim, SOUL, is to create as genuine a connection as possible over this virtual platform, and I am so excited to be inviting you along for the ride. Together, we laugh, we rant, we introspect, all the good stuff. So without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, I think it's going to the Facebook Live page now. So anyone coming on hopefully can see us with the lagging video because all Wi-Fi is very overloaded right now.
Story of my life.
I know, right? On Wednesday, I was doing my full-time gig here at home because we've been remote for 2 weeks, and I actually was getting booted out of my connection every 30 seconds. I kid you not. I type over 100 words per minute, and I got maybe 10 emails done in a 9-hour day. Like it was,
oh my gosh.
I wanted to, it's good thing I was social distancing because I would have broke someone. Like that is how I felt. And I don't often get that frustrated. Yes. So yeah, I think this is really, I know Allie, you have like some specific things to kind of jam out on. It's a chance for anyone who joins to ask questions. And I think really just open up conversation on entrepreneurship specifically during all the chaos and uncertainty that is going on. So take it away, friend.
Yeah, for sure. I know we had some notes, but I'm just gonna like kind of jump in and just maybe talk about it a little bit. But I think the biggest thing right now, and like I've sat in like a lot of webinars lately, and just like even just sitting with my own team meetings and clients and stuff like that. Ooh, I think someone's joining us here. Perfect. But I think one of the things we need to do is just take a moment to breathe. I think there was this like period of time where, of course, there was like it's completely uncertainty right now for sure. But I think there was this moment where I think that's Darlene. I'm not too sure. I think there was this moment of uncertainty for like this kind of time where people were like, okay, well, what do I do? And there was like this panic kind of that ensued with a lot of us. And you're not alone if you are feeling that way. And so a lot of people who are not normally online as much or just trying to navigate the whole thing kind of panicked a little bit. And we weren't sure how long. Everyone was saying like, 2 weeks. And we know it's not going to be 2 weeks. We know that it's going to be a while, right? Before we get back to whatever our normal is. And so there is this period. And again, I talked about this, where I kind of went through too, where it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to like hang out for a second. And so I waited a little bit and then realized like, there's something I got to do. And then all of a sudden it was like online was this flood of marketing of either people panicking or trying to use this crisis as a time in an inappropriate way to sell. And so I started to feel quite overwhelmed, and I was like, whoa, this is what's happening here. And so I think right now we're just trying to restructure. I think all of us are trying to find our new normal and restructure, especially us. Like there's a lot of people, including myself, where a lot of my business was in person. And what happens when a big chunk of your business is gone, right? We have to find new ways to kind of thrive in this, our new normal.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're kind of doing right now is just, especially for, I think the biggest thing is if you've got time, like give yourself some grace. I think that's the biggest like start for anything is give yourself some time to just relax for a moment and breathe and kind of figure out, what your next step is. 1 second, I'm just going to turn my light off because
no worries. I can fill some space because I think what you mentioned really hits home for me. Like I noticed as soon as it started happening, all these people who I maybe don't socialize all that often just popped out of the woodworks, but virtually. And I'm someone who's like pretty content with my solitary life. Like there's definitely been changes here. But the being at home, the virtual connection, that's kind of my jam. Like that's how I do things normally. But now it's like tenfold because people who I would presume are used to having more in-person connection or craving connection and reaching out for it virtually. And I'm having to balance, and maybe other people, depending on the kinds of services they're offering, are noticing this as well, really having to balance and know when I need to say no because I'm at my capacity for connection that day. Because I am not someone who can do, 5, 6, 7 hours of social time in a day. Like I cap out after 2. Let's not lie. Sometimes my cat talking is just too much for me. And so finding that balance between being of service, either as a friend or professionally, with what services I can bring to the table and how I'm offering that during this time. And then also knowing when, from like a social, mental, emotional standpoint, I need to tap out and put up that boundary, and that it's okay to do that.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's a lot of people were feeling that way. I think that like that flood. So I was saying like there was that few kind of days where people were like, I don't know. And then there was this flood of like, okay, well, what do I do? And that panic. and I felt that way too. Like it was just a lot. And I'm feeling that way even now as well. Like everything is turning into online meetings, which is lovely. But before there was this whole like, kind of get on the SkyTrain or get in the car, get on the bus, you're like this travel time or walking down the street or whatever, and really kind of being in charge of your schedule. And I think right now, everything's online now, which is great, but we also need to put up some boundaries when it comes to our business as well, and understand how much we want to put on our plate, because now everyone wants to do all the things, right? Now it's this time where everyone's like, well, if you're at home and you got nothing to do all the things. And it's like, hold on. And this is like that like idea of giving yourself that grace period. Whereas like on a regular schedule, it used to be, we're always like, go, go, go. And I'm speaking just for myself. I don't know if you guys are the same way, but I'm just like always like nonstop. And now that, I'm at home, I'm trying to like balance all this and like run on this meeting and this meeting and this meeting. And it's like, wait, like the whole point of this time is to organize, schedule. And now that we are home, give ourselves an opportunity to relax a little bit too, which we just had talked about before we started, which was, make time for yourself, whether it's planning or whatever it is, like give that time for yourself is so important, especially as we go into the next like month or 2 or whatever, how long it's going to be of, running our business. Right. So, but yeah, so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about in terms of social media, because we were talking about everybody being online and what it looks like for social media. So I guess some like tips and tricks that we've been doing and talking about to a lot of meetings with my clients is like, the first thing you should probably do is like look at your content calendar. If you've created a content calendar previously, go in there and check and make sure that everything is aligning and speaking to what's happening right now. Now, I'm not saying on one end, just go extreme where we're just talking about what's going on, and not the other extreme where we're just talking about ourselves and how we kind of, fall into plan with all of this. It's just a matter of just being aware that marketing, and I posted this the other day, is that our marketing is different in a crisis. It's not the same type of marketing you're doing. Sorry, that's me. Beeping's going off. But one of the things that I really love right now, that's like a common thing, is like anything goes. So people right now, everyone's at home. So, before everyone's different, like different time zones and working and all stuff, like everyone's online now, right? There's this increase of everybody on social media right now. So our audiences are bigger. Everyone's craving authentic moments, right? A lot of us photographers, videographers, content creators that are not connecting and creating that content. How do you shift or how do you change, right? It's not about stopping your business necessarily. It's just about creating that shift. And so a lot of people are wanting this like authentic community connection, and we're craving it more than ever. And so what's beautiful is anything goes. So we can literally show up as ourselves. We can share our videos from our phones. We can, as long, we're sharing ourselves. And I think that's really beautiful. And I really like this kind of new thing that's happening where everyone's just kind of present almost, because we're at home and we're here creating this content, and it's a very beautiful thing. So I'm loving it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Have you noticed like, because you mentioned about content creation, like I am someone, as you know, because we've talked, I don't have like, I don't take professional photos. I don't do that kind of thing. But have you noticed for those who maybe have the more curated platforms that there's been a shift, like in particular with their content as well, maybe like more story wise, even like lives, like stories, lives, like things like that? Is there like a trend towards that way of engaging?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are some accounts that any photographers or content creators. I think their accounts will still probably, in a sense, like visually look almost the same. I'm noticing that because they have those assets, or they have those, they have the camera, they've got whatever, right? Like they have it all, and they kind of know because they're running their own accounts. But for a lot of businesses who don't, like, they rely on us, the content creators, to create that for them, and we're not there. I think there's this big shift for them to just like take it on their own. And we're all aware, right, that there's no, that they don't have that access. And so I've noticed, yeah, in that other world, that they're sharing so much of themselves, and stories and videos and stuff. And it's like, and the engagement's really high, and then there's a lot of people loving it because they can relate. I think the biggest thing is being able to relate, right? When you're sharing a professional video at home, sometimes the message may not be received exactly the same way versus first person video, type of thing. It kind of, it brings yourself there. So, and one thing we can all relate to right now is that we're all at home, like majority of us. Everybody else that's working out there is working for us, in the hospitals and the stores and stuff, doing that for us, which is so beautiful and so appreciative. So the rest of us are at home. So that's like the one thing we can relate to, right? So
I keep muting myself so that it won't like overload the system. So you just like see me mouthing words. I'm like, yes, okay.
you're like,
I feel it. Yeah.
I love
exactly.
that. That's so good. That's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think, like, in terms of just talking about like the content creation part, is my advice to anyone, has their own business, who's maybe feeling a little bit stuck in terms of content, is like, you should never ever run out of content, especially when you're talking about your own business. Like, I think this is a great time to retell your story. Or if you're, trying to look in terms of pulling content, is talking about ways that you work from home, or, like just different ways to connect to people that are also still speaking about the topic at hand, but not necessarily being so nauseating talking about just that, or like I said, the kind of like going the other way. One of the things I also like really love, and like I just like put there in my notes, is like, always make sure that you're being present no matter what you're doing, and always stay within your brand. Just because this is happening doesn't necessarily mean you're going to just go completely off the rails either. I think, like, you have a strong brand. If you don't have a strong brand and you don't know kind of where you fall into place, and I think during a crisis is like the time where you kind of really know like who you are in your brand, right? Because when you're scrambling and going like, I don't know which way to go, I see one account posting this, should I do that? It's like, to find your own way is to kind of go back to who you are, what your mission is in your business, and figure that out first. So that's why I was saying, like, giving yourself that grace period is like, oh, everybody else is online, everybody's, selling this or whatever. It's like, find out the missing gaps that were in your business, and you can fill them now, having that time, right? Having that grace period to just go, okay, what do I need to do? And then you're going to be able to have that voice no matter kind of what you're sharing.
I've also been, it actually just so happened that these couple weeks lined up this way, but I had pre-scheduled interviews with potential guests on my YouTube channel over these couple weeks. So like for people with projects like that, that's another thing. If you have like podcasts, YouTube, anything like that, you're trying to get guests on. If others are having more free time right now, it can be a really great time to start doing some of those interviews and connecting with people. Because a lot of people are needing more connection, and then also having the time to do it. Just don't overload yourself like I have been. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, totally. And like, I'm just trying to look at, just so like I'm staying on topic under our notes that we had talked about.
Maybe we can see if anyone who's tuning in, and maybe not, but we have a couple people here. So if anyone has any questions or feedback at this point and wants to jump in, I think you can unmute yourself. Yes. Okay. I can unmute you. Can I unmute you? You unmute you. There you go. You're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I was just so I can relate a little bit because like to the point of like giving yourself this time to relax and not do too much because that's basically what I've been doing. And it's been so needed and so nice. But I am starting kind of like my side business. I have it kind of going a little bit. It's been really slow, which I'm totally okay with because again, like I want this time to myself. So I'm kind of struggling with knowing whether to start promoting it more to bring a bit more in, or to like leave it be so that I can still like kind of get a bit of rest that I need. So I'm trying to find like that balance, and that's probably for me like the hardest part right now, because like some days I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna like make a post and share this, and then like I think about, because like when I first opened my business at the end of January I do Akashic record readings, like my whole month of February was like fully booked, and it was like fantastic but exhausting. And so like I've had very little this month, which has been really nice because I need the break, and I have adjusted my schedule a bit so that it's, even if I did fully book up, it still wouldn't be quite that much. But yeah, I don't know, I'm just really struggling with kind of, I guess, the guilt of feeling like I don't want to, because like, and like, and that's not just with this situation. Like I talk to friends and stuff all the time, and they're like, oh, I've been using this time to get so much done at home, and like so many projects and so much cleaning and all this stuff. And I'm like, I've done nothing and I love it. Like I love it. And I don't regret it all, but I do have like that little bit of guilt in the back of my mind that's like, well, maybe you should be doing something with your time. So I don't know.
Can I share like less constructive business feedback, and then Allie can probably jump in on more the businessy side of things? Is that acceptable? Because I think, Allie, last time I was at your house and way overstayed my welcome because we always get distracted and too excited about things. Something I believe I had talked about was like, there seems to be this idea that entrepreneurship has to look one way, and it's this one size fits all, and it's very all or nothing, and it's like you are living the struggle 24/7. And I've really been trying to kind of rewrite that for myself and realize that it can look different at different times and for different people. And so like for me, a big part of that was realizing like I have a full-time job, often actually working 50 plus hours a week, not just, the usual 40. And I have a business with these projects. And just because I have a full-time job doesn't make me less of an entrepreneur. And I think similarly, you could go the other way and say, just because you're able to take time for yourself and step away doesn't make you less of an entrepreneur. And I wouldn't even say like just because. It would be like you are 100% an entrepreneur, and you are also recognizing when you need to just nurture yourself and show up for yourself in that way, and what helps you then later best show up for the dial movers of your business, like when it's time. So I don't know, like I feel there's probably the next point is like, okay, well, how then can you be productive within reason while honoring that for yourself? But I think even just the fact that you're allowing yourself that space and that grace is such a powerful lesson, that like when you have the energy to be able to share that is even really amazing. And like that's what to me creates sustainable business. Like for me, I need to have that balance and like be okay with allowing myself that downtime. So with that, I'll shut up and let Allie talk.
No, I love that you said that. That's amazing. Yeah, to speak on that as well, I think I've always done this my whole life. How I've worked in anything is that if I'm not feeling good about it, I'm just not going to do it. I think that especially in business, like it's got to be like a full body yes. If there's an inkling in your back of your mind that doesn't make you feel good, I think you should explore that. I think you should explore that feeling and find out, am I feeling guilt because other people are getting tons of stuff done? And if they weren't getting tons of stuff done, would I still feel that way? Or is that guilt coming from a place of, like trying to figure out where that's coming from? I honestly think like we find tiny gaps. Being a creative, we don't run, like you said, on the same schedule like everybody else. We find like I'll be in the middle cooking and I'm like, oh my God, this is such a great idea, runs downstairs and works for 2 hours. Or I'll schedule 4 hours and I'm like literally staring into the abyss. It just happens. Okay. Like that's just an honest feeling. And I think right now, if you're taking this time to just sit back and relax, I think it's awesome. I think there's a lot on social media of people saying, don't stop your business. You will fail if you do, continue it. And it's like, yeah, okay, cool. But also if I'm not feeling 100%, oh, hi, so sweet. If I'm not feeling 100%, like I'm not going to put myself into my business if I'm not 100%, because I feel like it's not fair to my clients. It's not fair to me. And it's important to check back within yourself all the time, always.
Yeah, I definitely, like my overwhelming feeling is like gratitude just for this break.
Yeah.
Just to be able to like have that space and time to do nothing. And then occasionally that little bit of like guilt will pop up and be like, well, maybe you should. But even with like projects, like creative projects, like I bead earrings and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I'll have so much extra time to like do things like that, crochet, whatever. And like most of the time, like I've been really good with being able to give myself the grace of being like, if I don't feel like it, I'm not going to do it, and that's okay. But every now and then that feeling pops up where I'm like, well, you should.
Yeah, and
I will when it's right, I guess.
Exactly. You're not alone. I think, and that's what we were saying in the beginning, was give yourself that time. Like everyone's going to use this time in different ways, and there's not going to always be the right way. We need to remind ourselves that. And this, I keep going back to social media where I'm seeing constant ads, popping up in my face, and my job is to be on social media. Jane, I know you're the same way, right? Like we're just constantly online. And so I think when like we're forced to kind of be online, and there's a part of me that loves it, and there's a part of me that's so overwhelmed, and I get anxious, seeing people say like, don't stop. And I just have to remind myself that I'm in control. I choose to decide when I want to do something, and we're all going to take this time and do different things in different ways. And that's totally okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wanted to talk, I don't know, Natalie, did you want to say some things, or do you want to shift, kind of talk about the next topic?
Let me think. No, I think I definitely though can relate like on, because I've seen like, but here's the thing. I've noticed it now, I think because more people are online, but I notice every day that there are certain people in my feed who are showing up consistently every fucking day. They're also very often the people who, like in my case, don't have a full-time job, or their schedule's just drastically different than mine, or there's those things. So I think just like you were saying, like if they weren't doing this more now, like how would you feel? It's also, I think for me, been just realizing like I'm seeing this person now and I'm feeling it because of how things have shifted, but also recognize like it's always like that. Like when I went on a vacation in the summer, I made an intentional choice to put down my phone. I drafted 4 posts for the vacation, so I'd go on Wi-Fi just to post them and I'd get off. But like that was it, and that was fine. So like why now would I be panicking about not showing up more, right? So just whatever I can do to gain that perspective, I think is important. And then just like you said, like allowing the individuality of the journey is important. And that's like, we all show up in unique ways and have unique things to offer. And even those offering the same thing, I always say this, like you can be offering the exact same thing, like you have a different story. So its meaning is changed by your context, right? And realizing that we still have that gift to bring to the table in a very oversaturated space when it comes to posting, not necessarily sales offers. That's it.
Yeah, totally. And I was actually going to kind of flow into my next point here, talking about, so like we were kind of talking about one where we're like, give yourself some space, but there are also a chunk of people that I'm going to talk about, myself included, that it's like, can I afford to not continue? Right? Like that's always a question of like, am I going to take this time to just completely like, okay, I'm off, I'm going to do what, and then I'll just jump back in? Or what are, like, there's a whole bunch of businesses, and I'll speak to the ones that are, local businesses, like, shops and things like that, that maybe like weren't online. And I've watched my friends in 2 days, like, put their business online. And I'm like, just like blown away by just like all, everyone kind of doing what they can to shift. And I think, so that's the next question is like, okay, give yourself some time and then talk about, you know, even speaking of our previous topic for you, saying like, okay, could this be a time that I could even just talk about, you know, my launch, or could I even just give, you know, like give yourself some time to maybe start advertising yourself, not in a pushy way or whatever, right? Because we're trying to be very careful in the way that we market during this crisis. But, you know, for people that can afford to stop their business, what can you do to shift your mindset, shift the way that you advertise yourself? So as an example for me, like what I was trying to do is, again, that first few days kind of relaxed a bit, then panic ensued. And then it was like, okay, now I'm stable again. Was what could I do to change, you know, how I market myself? Because 90% of my business is in person. I take photos, I do video, you know, I offer strategy, but a lot of my strategy is, it comes with content. I've always led with content. So what happens when you're not there? Well, you know, I'm seeing like, you know, a lot of yoga instructors, a lot of people are offering a lot of free resources, and I think that's beautiful. The reason they may not be making money off of that right now, but people will remember. People will remember who you were and how you acted during the crisis. You know, and that's what happens, you know, after the fact is, you right, people will be like, oh, I love that yoga instructor gave us a whole bunch of free yoga classes, now I'm going to go hire that person. Or so when it comes, when you're talking about marketing, what can you do right now to kind of shift your focus or shift your business, so that you're able to thrive? There's certain ways that you can kind of move around this. But for instance, like for me, like I said, okay, I have, you know, normally I'm with people, so what can I do? Am I offering curated stock images for clients? Okay, so that's an option for me. On Monday, I'm going to put out a sale for, you know, ship to shoot sessions. People can drop off curbside. I can shoot their products in my studio and they'll still have content. Like there's constant ways around it, right? That, you know, it's definitely not mirroring or exactly the same as what's happening, but there's definitely things that I can offer of value right now. Now, for some people who say, okay, I don't want to sell, or I can't do that, like I said, we can still show up. And I think that's what's awesome, is that we're just present. And it goes back to just being present. You're just showing up. You're there. How can you help your community? Can you offer value to your clients? You know, as long as you're sharing education, or, right, like, you know, those how-to posts or something that's intentional, people will remember that part of it. You know, and I think that's the most important part of marketing, is that you're always remembered. That's why people hire you. That's why, like you said, it's your story. There's always something that someone goes, okay, I really like this person, and so therefore I'm going to start this, you know, relationship. So
Love it.
you know,
I know I'm trying to watch the Facebook too. Like this dual monitor thing it's a lot right now with the cat.
see.
I don't yet see. I know someone asked me if I can show them after how to stream Zoom to Facebook, which I
love
absolutely
it.
can. I can probably put some snips in the comments on the video, and then everyone can just access it. Because I didn't know how to do it until 5 minutes ago. Yeah, no, I love that. And as you're talking, you're giving me ideas of new things I can do. And I think, I don't know if this is completely on with what you're talking about, but I know, like right now, at least here in Vancouver, we have that really awesome support group where we can be sharing resources that we're willing to offer up, and people can post for what they're needing. And I think that's a really great way to be connecting intentionally during this time. And so I know, like I posted a couple times. I'm going to keep doing it, but that's the thing, with the caveat of, as I have capacity, because I need to not overload myself, just because I know I want to show up for others, but posting like complimentary coaching sessions for COVID related relationship stress. And so there's ways to, right. There's ways to, like you were saying, like tailor the offer to the current time. And then also figuring out, like, to what extent do I feel I can offer something complimentary, and what does that look like, can be really powerful.
Yeah. So like, and that's what I was going to talk about in terms of like, just changing the way that you market yourself online. And I think that's like the biggest thing, right? Is just being intentional, being authentic. And for someone who's like, well, I don't know what to post, like, it doesn't matter if you're a service-based business or you're a product-based business. There's always something you can post. Either it's something to do with you and your life. Like, what we're doing is I'm, coming up with ideas for a lot of our clients, and, there's tons of stuff we've come up with, but, things like even just addressing the issue at hand, right? Still talking about, like, what are you doing during this time for your clients? Or, although this is not happening and we're doing this, sharing, like you said, free resources, connecting with a whole, like, this is a great time to even just connect with a lot of other business, like-minded people. And one of the things that I was suggesting too was, let's say you're someone who wants to hire someone for a specific service, and that service wasn't available because of everything going on. You can still connect with them. Like, for me, like, I connected with a client the other day, like a potential client. I wasn't pitching the same way I normally would pitch, but I said to them, like, look, we're in this crisis and I still want to work with you guys when this all kind of, hopefully, again, sorry, my bad, comes to an end. And so what can we do now to kind of like change that? And so we were able to kind of come up with some fun ideas, and we came up and we're like, okay, when this is over and we can finally see each other, we're ready to go. There's no pre-planning stage. Like, we're planning now for like months ahead, but like, we've got a Pinterest down, we've got a shot list down, like, we just organized early on. So there's so many things that you can still do in this time, while we wait or while you're working on things. And then in terms of content, just simply sitting down and just writing it all out for yourself, talking about what it looks like for you in isolation, if that's your story, being at home and working, talking about, misconceptions in your business, answer, speak to the issue, talk about gaps that you're filling within the industry. Like, there's so many things that you can come up with and pull, right? So,
I guess, does anyone have any comments, feedback that they want to jump in? Not to put anyone on the spot, just want to make sure we hold space for that too. Good. Okay. I think everyone can unmute themselves. So, like, it's an option if we need to be interrupted, which, depending, we might need to be. Awesome. No, I like that. I think that really puts it in perspective too, in terms of how we're revamping offers versus panic revamping offers. Because I think that's the biggest thing that I also wanted to make sure before I even posted in that group. I was like, am I posting this from a genuine place of wanting to offer this, and like full transparency, like, or am I posting this out of like that scarcity mindset and thinking, oh, but like, maybe I'll do this now and they'll convert to a client later. And I definitely had some people where they had reached out, but I was at my capacity for that weekend, and I have an event tomorrow that is a paid event, so I mentioned it. But the way I mentioned it was not like, oh, but you could do this. It was like, I do have this thing going on, and I can offer you a one-on-one spot in 2 weeks when I have capacity. So that they could engage if they wanted to, and I'm still offering. But it was important for me, and it's always important for me, I think, to check in before I do any sales/offer related anything, to ground in why I'm showing up for it versus putting it out there out of some need or some fear to fill that space, or like in my calendar or in the industry or whatever it might be. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that it's did you want to?
Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, that, like, I can relate to that so much, and that's like been part of the thing with me worrying about, like, should I start pushing this side business more right now or not? And especially because, like, especially in the wellness space, there's so many people offering free offerings, which is so nice.
Yes,
and like, and then I like feel like, okay, like, I'm obligated to do that too. Like, I should do that too. I need to do that too. And I do want to, but then like, it is like, just like you said, like, finding that balance of being like, A, like, where is this coming from? And like, B, like, still making sure that I'm not just like doing as big, like being like anyone and everyone, and like having limits, and setting up that time so that it's like, okay, like, I can realistically do this many free things in this week, and just offer that for now, and then that be that. But like, yeah, I definitely like part of me is like, hey, like I need to start doing that right now because everyone else is doing that right now, and like that's the right thing to do. But then I'm also like, but I also don't want to get like overwhelmed, and I want to take this time to relax. And so there's like so many sides to it, but like I super relate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was gonna say too, like it's, don't feel that pressure. And I think that's what we were kind of talking about today. And I think this is kind of maybe the theme of our conversation here is to don't worry about it. If there's something you want to share, amazing. If there's a free resource you can help people with, awesome. Like you said, like I love that everyone is sharing a lot of free resources. Like I just shared like an ebook the other day that was like journaling and has stuff to do like during isolation. Like I think everyone is like coming together and there's a lot of free stuff to go around. Okay. There's a lot of freebies happening and that's amazing. But really like, Natalie, like you said too, like, why are you sharing this? Are you sharing? Like, I think that's kind of where it comes, like if you're sharing because you want to help people, awesome. That's great. If you don't have time to share free stuff, then don't worry about it. Right. Share what you can, do what you can. And that's why I was saying like giving yourself this time to take a step back. I mean, maybe that's the reason is that you do need to take a step back because there's too much on your plate, and this will give a chance to kind of organize and do it that way. But yeah, there's so many amazing resources that are out there right now. And like, I'm absolutely loving it. Like, it's awesome. It's so good.
Yeah. And I don't know, Allie, your thought on this, and I might word this not in the best way. But I will just put it bluntly, like there are still people who have the means to invest right now as well. And so there are, and like, I'm not the one to comment on the how of this because I'm very much figuring it out as I go. But I think there are also ways to make things accessible to those who don't have the means now or in general.
Yes.
And to also, for those who do, like not to assume that they don't, kind of thing, and like what's the best way to navigate that, which can be like a really difficult thing to navigate generally, because that's always a thing to be aware of, but especially I think during a time like this. That makes sense. Told you it would not be worded well, but I hope you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Actually, I was going to talk about that really was changing our language. And I think you brought up two great points. The first point is like, yes, it's a crisis. Yes, a lot of people are losing their jobs, but there's a lot of other people thriving in their business right now. Right. And like, it's not like, it's not to say it's a bad thing. I think it's amazing. And I think, like I said, giving yourself that time to take a step back, or whether it is you're working in your business rather like, or on your business rather in your business or whatever, or vice versa. Right. But I think that there is like a huge like section or huge other like area where there's so many people thriving. And, what are they doing different, or have they always been that way? But I think the biggest thing is language. We had talked about this already about how you just change your marketing. That's all you do. And I think changing the language when you're talking to people, when you're advertising, is the same thing with me, right? Like offering maybe shoots, for instance, that are not crazy price, because people, again, there's a lot of people losing their jobs. But at the same time, there's so many people who want to invest in their business right now because they have some time, right? Whether it's for you, you're still working and trying to run a business, and trying to live your day-to-day life. And that's a lot. And we need to recognize that. There's the others who are taking some time away to whether to work on their mental health, to work on their, their schedule for their business, whatever. There's people like me, for instance, who is trying to shift my business so that I can still make some money. Let's be honest, that's my job, but also to be present and serve the community who needs help. So that's why you were saying like, we're not all the same. There's so many different moving parts. And the best thing to do is to just navigate with coming from an authentic place and changing our language. So if we're marketing, instead of, pitching a business and being like, hey, I want to, work with you, whatever, during this time, speak to the crisis. Hey, I know that you're going through a lot right now. I can see that this is happening for you. Is there a way that I can help? Right? Are you needing content? If you don't, no worries, but this is what I can offer you. Or, if it's coaching or whatever it is your business is, if you come from a good place, no one's ever going to feel like, oh no, she was coming after me because she wanted like, business, or she wanted whatever. It's like, we are business people. Like, this is our jobs. Like, this is how we run our jobs. And so again, it's just our language. It's how we kind of show up, and people will know that it comes from authentic place. If they're not interested, they'll say no worries. But I think that we can thrive. There's ways for us to shift our mindset and shift our business in this time, but we're just doing it in a more of a thoughtful way.
I'm kind of thinking too, as you say this is not a well thought out notion once again, because these are things that I'm exploring as I go. So this is not well formulated, but I kind of have a wonder if this panic that ensues during this time of crisis of, oh, I don't necessarily have the means to offer something at a lower investment or complimentary because I'm just trying to stay afloat, might be, so I'm just going to mute. It might be also a time to use this chance to explore, or maybe look out for resources for ourselves where we can figure out, like, okay, during the year, how can I start to build up so that I have the means to put back in to maybe have an offering, like a scholarship spot or a subsidized or whatever it might be. Like, how can we create accessible programs or offerings always? Because there's always someone who is meant to fill this space where perhaps our standard offering is not an option. And that's a new perspective we can start to explore. And now I say that as someone who is fully learning to explore it. And so if anyone watches this and they're like, I need resources to learn more about that, I can share those with you. I am not the person to do the teaching on it, but just something to be aware of and think of, I think is really important too.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because again, so now we're talking about the person who says, look, I can't. And I love that we're talking about all different people, because this is all of us. It's just, again, there's not one size that fits all. So this is great. But for the person who is, it can't do that or won't, right? Cool, right? We're no judgments here. We're all in this together. But they're like, look, this is my package. Take it or leave it. The value, it's always about value. So even when we talk about product-based businesses, I talk about that a lot with my clients. Like, look, you're doing a deal. Well, don't remove pricing. Don't reduce your pricing. Your pricing is what you're pricing, but maybe add value. So whether it's you're doing a coaching session, well, I'll add on another 20 minutes. That time equals money. I'm still holding space for you, but perhaps maybe that it's the value that you're always adding, not taking away. So if you're a product-based business, it's like, here, you buy this thing, I'll give you a free this, a little tiny thing here. Or if you're just giving value in the sense of like an education or a freebie, so there's so many things you can do without reducing your pricing, which is totally okay too. That's where I mean, like, you got to figure out when you have a solid foundation for your business, there's times where you can, okay, I'm not too sure. And of course we all get confused. We all get overwhelmed and stuff, right? That's fine. But you'll never have to worry about understanding where you show up. Like, how do you add value, or where do you belong in all of this? Because when you already know who you are in your business, then there's no worry there. So I think, like, in that sense, if you're just like unsure, like, oh, should I do this? Well, then that's the time to step back and get ahead of the game, right? You can totally get ahead of the game during this time by organizing your content. But I love that you talked about that there's, you can work on it now to offer it in the future, or you can just stay where you're at. You don't need to give deals. You don't have to do anything. And maybe you can just add a bit of value to it, right? Because you said your story is who you are. And I always tell this to my clients. I'm like, you've got 5 Bobs, but Bob number 5 was the one who said, thanks so much, Allie. I really appreciate you. And that really struck,
I thought that mine was Barb, who got her first vibrator or something. And then I told you that was my mother's name, and we had a really good laugh.
So yeah. Like, Barb, I just pull these names. I'm like, it's Sue, it's like Bob, Steve, and Barb. But
or my mother.
Yeah, your mom.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's how you stand out, right? It's who you are. It's how you stand out. It's your story. It's right. Like, your brand story or your story of who you are is like so important. It's just so important because it's your blueprint. It's your thumbprint. Like, no one, you're unique. Obviously, like, I'm going to do this cliche stuff. Like, you can do it, but you are unique. Like, who you are and who you show up, like, as you show up as yourself and your brand, that's awesome. People will love it. So
amazing. Was there anything from your little list? Because we're kind of at the 45-minute mark. Is there anything you're feeling a need to dive into? I feel like we've had a very good natural flow, but I want to do a little
No,
check-in
that's
on
why I
our
was
end.
like, I'm like, sometimes I put some lists, but it takes
We
itself over.
always do this though. We just like your brain moves so fast and like mine tends to as well. And I know when I've been at your house, it's just like I don't think I've talked that much in my life. Like
Well, Andrew always makes comments because when I'm downstairs in my studio and I'm like during my strategy sessions, I'm just like, I told him, I'm
right.
like, I get possessed and I actually, like, I'm gone. I don't
Yeah.
know where I go. And then I show back up and I'm like, what happened?
Yeah.
What went down? So, oh, okay. Well, the last thing I actually wanted to talk about, it was on the list here, completely forgot, was
Do it.
talking about cash flow, but we did talk a little bit about it, but some things that you can do for reducing cash flow, especially in these times, is look at your bills and find out what you're paying within your business that you can pause or you can stop for now. I think that's a big one because normally when our businesses are rolling, we're just like inbound, outbound, inbound, right? Like it comes in and out for flow. And when it kind of halts for a moment, what can you do to, save a little bit of money? Like, are you part of a subscription base of something that you don't need? And this could actually just even be in life, right? It doesn't necessarily mean just in business. Like, what are you doing right now? Just try to stop those damn subscriptions, from happening for now if you're not using it. I think that's the biggest thing, right? It's not a problem if you're not using it, but if you've decided like, look, I'm going to take this time solely just to like find my inner being and, just meditate or whatever it is, amazing. But is there, if you're not making any money at the moment, or there's obviously limited cash coming in, what can you do to kind of, cut ties with some stuff just for now, right? Just to stay within budget. Yes, that was the only thing that was on the list I don't think we talked about.
Awesome. No, that reminds me too, like, I don't know if other people have noticed, but the other day when I was in my email inbox, I'm getting bombarded by people I have subscribed to who I think now more than ever are sending all the freaking emails. And I
Yeah.
think similar to like bills coming in, like it was so overstimulating. And so I actually
Yeah.
I'm planning, so I have this with you today, which was totally last minute, but awesome. And then I have a workshop tomorrow. But over the next couple of weekends, I'm trying to coordinate some other events. And one that I think I might do is have like a Zoom call like this where we can chit chat and like play some music, like do an inbox clearing and like hit that unsubscribe button or find where we're getting bills that are services we don't need and we can take note to clear them out. Because I think like maybe we're not getting as much social stimulation as we usually would, or it looks very different and because of that, we're not feeling as stimulated that way. I know for me right now, it's like sensory overload, but I don't know. I am my own person. So, you know, but it's coming in different ways. It's other people's energy. It's, all the posts on Facebook or like that same meme that you see 20 times over that just makes you want to like rip your hair out. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
or, the people like, I don't know why we need to stay inside. Like those things
Yeah.
so like where within our control that is supportive to us, like still being informed, but also feeling grounded, can we eliminate some of that? And so I think bills are great, emails are great. And then also I would say on the flip side, like someone said this to me once, and I think like, I feel Ali, you might kind of relate on this too, is like, if it's not a way I like to be marketed to, then like maybe I shouldn't do it as my way of marketing. And so if those emails are overwhelming me, it might not be time to amp up my email list and like be doing these blasts every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If I'm like, for me right now, I'm actually watching my Instagram stories a bit more than I usually would. So like maybe that's where I start to show up, because chances are the people I'm meant to work with, people I'm meant to support are showing up in those spaces too. So like now's the time, like you've been talking about, to create that connection and that foundation for like whatever comes next.
Yeah. And I think, like just wrapping up and talking about that is great. That's a great idea. Yeah. Like going on your emails, removing what you need to. And I tell my clients all the time too, I'm like, email marketing is amazing when it serves the right person, when it has the right language and it has value. So you don't need to send an email every 3 days if there's nothing, like it's just repetitive, or it's just bombarding, or it's causing anxiety for people. You know, the old way of marketing and emails is, you know, it's always this, which I hate in marketing, and I'm fully in marketing, and I'm going to say this right now. I hate when people say speak to their pain points. I think that's pretty shitty, to be honest, because I think that it's giving a false sense of hope for people, because you're basically like, well, you suck and this is how I can help you. And you're like, okay. And you click on it, and then you go down a funnel of, you know, and then there goes all your money. And the reason why I speak to that, and why sometimes I'm so passionate about it, is because the clients that come to me are the ones that have done that. So they come to me and go, help me. This is what I did. And it's always the same story. It's, I like bought this program, or I did this thing, and I, you know, and it's like, it's just not speaking to who they are. Whereas, like, you know, I am subscribed to so many amazing newsletters that I absolutely love. And every time they come in, I'm like, yes, because it's got amazing value to me. And even though I know that they're like, hey, blank, and then they just fill in my name, it doesn't matter, because all the information there is what I love. And I know that they're sharing it with their community, and it's a value. So I think, again, it's just, even not talking about a crisis, I'm just talking about standard marketing. Like, if you're showing up and you're, you know, giving it something of value and people love it, cool. But it really depends who you're speaking to. Know who your audience is. And I don't really agree with the whole pain point thing. I think, you know, you can talk about it in general, but everybody has a different way that they deal with situations, and again, it's no one size fits all type of marketing. So you kind of really just have to, you know, show up who you are. Like, that's where the connection happens.
Yeah.
Right.
You made me laugh, because I actually I signed up for this thing through something Lauren sent me the other day, and I was like, oh, I want to investigate like this free course majigger. It's like a YouTube pre-recorded thing. And I got another email from the person, and it like had my name in it. But this is a sign that like maybe this is something I'm supposed to look into, because I was like, did she like write this to me? Like, how does she know my name? And then I realized it's like an autofill shit. But I actually had that moment of being like, oh my God, like she really is psychic. Like,
that's so funny. I love it.
Oh my God.
I think it's
I need to get out more, but
meant to be that way, I think. And so, like, that's cool that you received it that way, but not everybody does. And that's what I mean by just being aware of how you're marketing yourself, right?
It's cool, but like, is it though? Like, come on. Like, oh, goodness gracious.
That's so funny.
I agree though. And that was one where it was like, okay, like this is written in the way I need to hear it, and something's resonating. And I think then also it's like, give yourself freedom to disengage from the things that aren't. Like, for me, there are certain emails that every time they come in my inbox, I'm like, you fucking kidding me? Another one? Like, it's just not me. And I'll read the first line and be like, ugh, and just like get rid of it. And so like, don't be Sue, who sends those emails, and like,
yeah, like, and like, again, everybody's kind of their own thing. Like I said, I'm not hating on you know, like, you know, the email marketing. I think it's awesome when it's done like, you know, like curated and thoughtful. I think it's great. For me, like, I'll remove ones that just constantly talk about how I suck and should follow them. I remove ones that, you know, talk about how much money they're making and only focus on the money and not about the service they're providing. Because to me, I've never been about that. You know, like, people will talk about, oh, do this and make this much money. And it's like, okay, well, like, why do we have to add the money? Like, we need money to live. We need money to eat. I get that. But I've never been about that in my marketing. I've never talked about that. And I'm not one to do it now. I just don't think it really matters. I think if you're loving what you're doing and you're making money off of it, then that's just like amazing bonus, and it's cool. So
yeah, no, totally agree with that. I've always said, like, the whole point is showing up and being of service. And it's like, even with my full-time job, it's like, granted, there are days that are more difficult, and I think it's like that with everything. But like, at the end of the day, it's about showing up, being of service, engaging in the ways that matter to me, and the paycheck is a bonus.
Yeah.
Right? And to feel that way that's what creates that, I think, like, sustainable path, whether it's full-time gig, entrepreneur, or entrepreneurship is your whole thing. Totally. So awesome.
Totally.
I feel like we covered much ground. Any parting words from our participants? We're feeling good. Okay. Then I guess I just need to figure out how to disconnect us from Facebook. Thanks, Facebook, for watching us. I'm going to stop the live stream. There we go. All right, that's done.
Yeah, thanks guys for joining. That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for tuning into today's episode of Coffee Time. As always, I invite you to reflect on it all, take what you like, and leave what you don't. If today's episode resonated, comment below or screenshot and share to your social media. And don't forget to tag me at I am Natalie Christina on Insta. And I would super appreciate if you hit the subscribe button to help make this show accessible to more magical humans like yourself. Until next time, I am your muchly caffeinated host, Natalie of Natalie Christina Coaching.